So you want to be a registered dietitian? You are in the right place. My name is Jenny Westerkamp, founder of All Access Dietetics, and your host for Dear Future Dietitian, a podcast dedicated to helping you feel more confident in every step of your journey towards that RD credential. Thank you for being here and taking the time to listen to this episode and investing in yourself and your future career. I can already tell you're going to be a rockstar dietitian. Now let's get into it. Welcome. In this episode, we will be playing a presentation from the second annual RD2BE Summit, which was held in August of 2022. And in this episode, we have Shani Jordan-Goldman, who is the founder of Nutrition Cheat Sheets. She's also the creator of our All Access Dietetics Real World Clinical Toolkit. She is an amazing clinical dietitian and educator from New York who just has the most amazing sense of confidence and speaking ability. And it was such a hit at the summit that we wanted to bring it to the podcast as well. So now we'll play Shani's confidence pep talk for you, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hi, my name is Shani Jordan-Goldman. I am the founder of Nutrition Cheat Sheets, and I'm very excited to be presenting to you guys at the summit, the All Access Dietetics Summit, on how to have confidence in clinical nutrition, because this is a big subject that can be really overwhelming, especially when we're starting out. A lot of times we dive in head first, we're going to be a dietitian, and then we're going through all of the school processes and internship processes and like the studying for the exam processes. And when it finally is our opportunity to be the professional in the room, there is often this disconnect between how do we project that confidence with that imposter syndrome that a lot of us have sort of simmering under the surface. I know my dietetic internship didn't necessarily teach me confidence, so we're going to talk a little bit about it today. It's something that I know a lot about. I struggled with it for a long time. I teach a lot of people how to do it now. There are 4 things that you're going to want to pay really close attention to as you're getting your legs under you and really starting to get comfortable in your new role as a dietitian. And just let me put up a disclaimer here, just because this is competence in clinical nutrition, these rules apply to everything. They apply to whether you want to be a farmer, they apply to whether you want to be a dietitian, or if you want to change careers and go into banking, it doesn't matter. When you want to build confidence internally and then be able to project it externally, these are just some very solid starting points that are going to take you through the rest of your career, no matter where your career leads you. So let's dive in. To review the 4 that we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about that you got to know your material. You have to know your subject matter. We're going to be talking about communication, which is absolutely essential. You're going to be thinking a little bit about, we're going to talk about when to ask for help, when to ask questions, when to ask for support, and when to say no. So let's start at the very beginning. Know your subject matter. Know your subject matter. I mean, this almost speaks for itself. Know your subject matter. You have to be really proficient in whatever you're going to be tasked with doing, because you got to be able to execute, right? Like there's absolutely, this one's pretty self-explanatory, but I think it deserves its place as number 1, because a lot of us will dive in head first to something like our first clinical job without a real solid feeling like everything that we have going on justifies the fact that we're actually there. This is where imposter syndrome crops up. This is where, the fact that we don't always learn a lot, or the things that we really need to know very, very well in our dietetic internships. Our preceptors are busy people. They don't always fill all the blanks in for us. This is where you've got to start sourcing outside material, doing a little bit of research on your own, and just sort of like digging deep so that you can get better at whatever it is you are tasked to do. Whether that means you're working in a facility, in a long-term care facility, in an acute care facility like a hospital or something. This also applies to whether you want to go into private practice. If you're going to go into private practice, you're going to have a population that you focus on. Right? Like that's part of developing your business and your business plan and your business model. Who are you going to be talking to? You're not going to be talking to everybody. You're going to be talking to a very specific group of people. Are you talking to parents of children who have cancer? Are you talking to teenagers who are struggling with disordered eating? Are you talking to middle-aged men about prostate health and hormone balance? Like, what are we talking about? What are we actually talking about here? And when you figure out what you want to actually be addressing, that's where you have to get as really well versed in that particular set of materials as you possibly can. That's number one. Know your subject matter. I feel like you don't even need any explanation after that. Know your subject matter, know your material. It will take you a very long way as you're building confidence and feeling really good about the information that you're able to communicate with people. Which brings us right into number two, communication. Communication is key. We all know this, but there's two variables to communication. You need to know how to communicate orally. You've got to be able to say quickly, efficiently, concisely, clearly what you're thinking or whatever information you want to impart on somebody, whether that's a doctor, whether or not that's your patient, whether or not that's your patient's spouse or your patient's parents or your client's parent, whatever it is, you have to be able to communicate your point in a way that that person can actually understand, which sort of brings us into it sort of pulls into a second component of oral communication. You have to know your audience. So the way that you present information to your client might be wildly different than the way that you present information to a doctor. The second part of communication is not only do you need to know how to do this orally, but you have to be able to do it in a written form as well. Why? Because writing notes are going to be part of your job, no matter what kind of nutrition you're practicing. This conversation, we're talking a little bit about where the emphasis here is on clinical nutrition, but the reality is clinical nutrition applies. It's a much broader stroke than we give it credit for. It's not just working in a hospital. If you're doing private practice, if you're a sports dietitian, if you're working one-on-one with anybody, even the community, you're probably doing a variation of clinical nutrition, some sort of nutrition counseling. And if there's medical nutrition therapy involved in there, there's a good chance that there's a healthcare team also involved. If there's a healthcare team involved, you're going to need to be able to document your argument, document your point, be able to communicate your subject matter, not only verbally to people, but also in a written form, whether that is writing notes, writing emails, which are really, really important. Do not underestimate the power of a well-written email. But either way, you want to be able to communicate your thoughts and your ideas, impart your subject matter in a way that everybody can understand. And again, I can't stress enough the value of being able to communicate to different people in different ways. If you can master that kind of communication, the communication that you're going to have with a doctor versus the communication that you're going to have with a patient or a client or their spouse, these are going to take you very, very far, no matter if you're doing clinical nutrition or anything else with your career. The third thing on the list of how to manage yourself in clinical nutrition and build confidence as a dietitian is always going to be when to ask. And I talk about this a lot, being able to ask for help, ask questions, get clarification on things. You've got to be able to do it. You've got to, if you're a little bit shy, if you're a bit of an introvert, if you always sort of feel compelled to figure it out on your own, this is your opportunity. Use this as your big sign that tells you to put that to the side and ask for help. Ask questions, get clarity, ask. It is going to be a huge lifesaver for you more times than you maybe anticipate it will be. Think about it like this. If there's something in a medical chart that you just don't understand, you've got to figure it out because it might be wildly valuable to the way that you then go about providing care for your patient, right? This is just an example. But if you don't know what that lab means, if you've never heard of that disease and Google just isn't being very helpful, it's going to be really difficult for you to then turn around and provide accurate treatment. Whereas you can just go to the doctor and ask, what's going on with this lab work? Are their kidneys getting better or are they getting worse? How worried are we here? Are they getting off the vent soon? Do we need to drop an NG tube? At some point, we're going to have to feed this person. Do you have any thoughts on how you'd like that to happen so that I can do my job and we both can then support our patient? You've got to ask these questions because I'm telling you right now, Nobody else is going to be running around asking the dietitian. Dietitians have to it's somehow became an inherent part of our job to speak up and advocate for our patients, maybe more than a lot of other components of the healthcare team end up doing. And you've got to take that part of your job seriously. Sometimes that just means asking a question. Does it mean putting your putting your ego aside for a moment? Yeah, you got to admit you don't know something. Okay, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Doctors don't know everything either. Doctors do not know everything, especially if you're in a teaching hospital. Keep that in mind. You're probably going to be dealing with a lot of residents, new doctors, not new dietitians, well, new dietitians also, but definitely new doctors who need a bit of a nudge. They need to be reminded that they don't know everything. They need to be reminded that their note that they charted on was inaccurate or not clear. And you've got to be able to approach somebody and ask.
Hey, we interrupt this episode to give you a discount. That's right. As being a loyal listener of the Dear Future Dietitian podcast, you can use code PODCAST for $20 off anything in our RD exam prep or in our career toolkits. So that means you could get $20 off the Pass the Exam Prep Binder, $20 off the Pass Class RD Exam Prep Program. You can also get $20 off any of our courses, like the Get Hired course if you're job searching, or even a real world toolkit, like real world clinical, real world sports nutrition. There's a geriatrics one and a counseling one. So enjoy that $20 off with code podcast at allaccessdietetics.com.
That's a big part of having confidence. It's also a big part of building confidence. It's the kind of thing, it's that sort of circular logic where you can't really get better at something unless you actually do it. Digging deep, putting yourself out there, asking for help. This is your opportunity to practice that. Just like Rihanna said, if you don't feel it, do it until you feel it. If you don't feel confident that day, get in there, just do it until it starts to click, until it starts to feel like something that you have the capacity for. People aren't laughing at you. It's not going to happen. People aren't thinking that you're stupid. That's also not going to happen. But it is the kind of thing that people will respect when they realize that you're paying attention and that you're advocating for the patient that everybody's supposed to be taken care of and that they can take you seriously as a nutrition professional. So know when to ask, and definitely use your communication skills and the fact that you know your subject matter really well to then do the asking. Oh, one more thing about when to ask. A big part of developing confidence is in all things, clinical nutrition, but in all things nutrition, is knowing when to ask for help. So knowing when to source information is one part of asking for help, but knowing when to ask for help, learning something will also go a long way to helping you build your confidence in clinical nutrition and then be a better dietitian in general so that you can do these other things, better communication, approach doctors with more confidence and clarity, being able to know your subject matter a lot better. These are things that come along with asking for help and asking for somebody to support you in building your knowledge base. So ask for help. It goes in all sorts of directions. That's number 3. The fourth part of building confidence in clinical nutrition is all about saying no. You probably heard this a million times. You've got to have boundaries. Got to have boundaries in all types of relationships, whether that's work relationships, home relationships, all of that stuff. You got to know when to say no, because I'm telling you right now from experience, and I'm pretty sure that every dietitian you have ever spoke to can attest to the fact that they will, if you give them an inch, they will take a mile. And sometimes this is the kind of thing that we are okay with, we open up to, we're willing to do a little bit of extra work, and that's all fine and good. However, you've got to be able to draw the line somewhere. If you're going on vacation and you know your facility is short-staffed, don't agree to chart remotely for half your vacation because you feel bad. No, that is not your responsibility. You've got to be able to say no. If your facility thought it was really important that their charting got done in a timely manner, then they would consider hiring adequate staffing for it. That's just an example, but you've got to be able to know when no, the word no, becomes a really valuable thing for you. And the only way that you can sort of know your worth is if you give yourself something worthwhile to stand up against. Part of that is your pay, being able, and not everybody is able to say no to really shitty pay. really bad pay. Sorry. Not everybody is able to say no to really bad pay. If you have to take a job, you take that job, and you still have boundaries within the setting of that particular position. Because in clinical nutrition, we are notoriously understaffed and poorly managed, which means that a lot of extra responsibilities are always going to be thrown at you. And if you constantly just say yes to everything, it's not going to end. It is not going to end. You've got to be able to say, no, I'm actually going to take a sick day today. I have sick time. I need to use it. Or no, my vacation was scheduled. I can't change that because such and such isn't coming in. It's scheduled. I'm sorry, I can't. I'll be gone. Know your worth, know your value, and in that, be able to say, I can't. I'm thank you for the offer. I'm not capable of that right now. Whatever it is, learn to say no. And as a side note, like a little bonus one here, confidence in clinical, just confidence in life 101. Please, for the love of God, please stop saying sorry for everything. Just stop saying sorry for it. Don't say, oh, I'm so sorry. I've got to go home and feed my baby. There's no apology in that. I don't have to apologize for that. I can't. I won't be able to do that. Thank you for thinking of me. I'm sure I'll be able to get to it tomorrow. That's not something I'll be able to execute on today. That's not something that I'll be able to finish today. But if you leave it with me, I'll make sure it gets done this week. Don't apologize. If you're going to ask a question, don't preface that question by saying, I'm sorry, I just have a question. Just say, excuse me, Dr. Samuel, I got a question. Can you help? I have a question. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on something. Do you have a second? You don't have to apologize for wanting to source information. You never have to apologize for being interested in something. And you certainly do not have to apologize when something is outside of your capacity. These are things that are not necessarily easy to do, but I can promise you that if you start doing them, they will help you develop confidence that is imperative to have as you're going through your clinical nutrition career or any part of your nutrition career. Whether or not you decide to be a clinical dietitian, which again, can't stress it enough, more people are doing clinical work out here than they care to admit. But no matter what direction you go in, these 4 things with the bonus will carry you and help you build confidence no matter what you end up doing in life. I hope those things help. I will be doing a live Q&A after this session for the summit. I hope to see you guys there. Bring your questions. I love to chat.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dear Future Dietitian. I hope you got a lot out of it, and I also hope that you take action based on what you learned today. Now, if you have any questions at all, please reach out to us through our website, allaccessdietetics.com, or DM us on Instagram or TikTok. We are here to help you become a more confident registered dietitian to be and make this journey way less stressful for you. So reach out, don't be a stranger, and we hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day.